Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Appreciate you folks joining me this evening as we try to figure out what's going on with this pattern going forward. I really think we're going to have a chance for strong to severe storms, a higher chance than what we've seen over the last several days. For the next several days going forward. In this video, we'll discuss a lot on what potentially could happen next week, where we have a little bit of an unusual event that could unfold, but there is still some disagreement with some of the model guidance like the Euro and the GFS. We're going to focus in a lot on the Euro in this video. We're going to try to figure this out for you guys. The good news out of all this is a lot of areas are going to see rain that really need to rain. The bad news is you could potentially see severe weather with this rain. So we'll try to talk about that, figure it all out for you folks, and then get you guys on your way. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over? As always, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. We got a little bit of a coughing bug here in our household. I think all of our throats are kind of sore. Nobody's super sick or anything. I don't know if it's allergies or we got a little cold or something, but everybody in the house pretty much has a sore throat, a little bit of a cough, and just a little under the weather. So I definitely ask for prayers that we feel better. It kind of stinks because we were planning on going to Carowinds here locally in the Carolinas tomorrow, and not sure if we're going to be able to do it. We might have to postpone it until later in the month. But regardless, we're okay. We're doing well, just a little under the weather. So I appreciate the prayers. Let's get rolling this evening. We'll start off right off the bat. And this is for tomorrow. I will tell you, we're not going to get detailed on tomorrow, but there will be a severe weather threat for tomorrow for areas of southeast Colorado, southwest Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, and these just areas right into here. The tornado threat with this is less than 2% risk of a chance. There's a 15% risk, though, of winds pushing 50 knots or higher within 25 miles in a given location in the yellow area. And the hail threat will not be that big tomorrow, but I could see this increasing to a 15% risk. But it has increased enough of the winds to bump it up to a slight risk for tomorrow. Now, as we get into Saturday, bigger threat of severe weather, I think, is going to come up. I would say this is more of a higher-end slight risk than the risk tomorrow. You got a pretty large slight risk. I could see this going into an enhanced risk for very large hail, but as of now, it's a pretty big, pretty broad slight risk of severe storms. It's a level 2 out of 5. This does include, you might as well say this includes Oklahoma City. It includes Dallas, Shreveport, almost to Little Rock, and this entire region right here where Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana all kind of connect into here. And this doesn't break down a risk of anything because we're at day 3, but I can tell you there's a 15% risk of severe weather in this yellow area within 25 miles in any given location. And then there's also, in this black outline region right here, there is a 10% risk of significant severe weather. So that basically is a 10% risk of, could it be significant tornadoes, could it be hail, could it be winds? In this case, it most likely will be hail. Most likely you will have a hatch risk for large hail, which is a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2-inch in diameter or larger. But we'll see what it says as we wake up tomorrow morning. Let's go on and break down Saturday. Not really breaking down in great detail, but kind of what the NAM is showing on this. We'll wake up Saturday morning, and even the Storm Prediction Center discusses this. There's probably going to be a pretty large area of showers and storms, and these could be reaching severe limits somewhere in eastern Oklahoma. They could be all the way into western Arkansas and northeast Texas, but if you're in this area of Oklahoma, even watch out northeast Texas, like I said, western Arkansas. Prepare potentially for Saturday morning to have a rude awakening for your Saturday morning. It could be woken up by a pretty intense line of storms that could be working its way generally southeast or south in a directional flow here. But as this moves through, how much does the atmosphere recover? The models like the idea of basically more storms, shower activity, storm activity reinitializing here in Mississippi. This is why they have kind of extended the marginal and slight risk into Mississippi. And we have to watch for some strong storms, potentially severe storms. Jackson up to Memphis, Little Rock for sure. And then what happens in Texas? Now, I think the storms, as of now, as we get into Saturday afternoon, will not be widespread in Oklahoma and Texas, where you have the slight risk right here. Okay, but I do think anybody that does see any storm action in this region, these storms could produce very large hail. And here it is. You stop it right here just around 4 or 5 p.m. Saturday. It really likes the idea of a very intense storm south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, this is 2 days out. Okay, this is literally 2 days from right now. So these models are not gospel. You don't believe them to a conclusion level. You just say, hey, this is guidance, and I would watch out for some intense storms into here. Okay, even shows one popping up near the Red River, Oklahoma, Texas border. Storm way down here, kind of in east central Texas. So not very widespread, but where any storms do form, sometimes Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, these can be quite intense into this region. So we'll get more in detail into that when we have more details. So getting into next week, this is Sunday through basically this time next week, next Thursday, day 4 to day 3, right? Every day it says predictability too low. There's a pretty solid chance we're going to get a chance of severe weather each day next week. It's just, are we going to have any significant severe weather? That's really the question. And Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, even Thursday, will each respectfully have their own threat, their own kind of mechanism driving some kind of severe threat. Okay, so let's talk about what's driving this. So what we do know is there's going to be some upper troughing, basically a separation between moist and dry air right over the Great Lakes region. But the actual boundary between these two air masses will probably be somewhere down here to the south. Whether it's in the Mississippi Valley, somewhere in the Mid-South, the Deep South, not quite sure. This will be a feature also to watch. But this upper low becomes completely closed probably sometime as early as Saturday night into Sunday. You get a closed off upper low. At the base of this upper low down here, you'll have a piece of energy, weak low pressure, that probably flies through here. This will be probably the initializer of scattered storms, basically all throughout, maybe even portions of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-South. You're probably going to have a lot of storm activity in this region, possibly. Okay, it's still something we need to figure out, something we need to watch. Now, as we are getting into Monday morning, we're getting into the prime heating of the day Monday. You got this upper level low right over Lake Michigan. You got this upper troughing, lower heights basically extending all the way down into the south. So you'll probably have warm, moist air down into here, and then you'll probably have cooler, dry air on top of this. Now, it's just trying to figure out where the storms will be at this point. Now, if I think there's going to be any day next week where the severe weather threat won't be as high, it'll be Monday. And this is basically because some of these lower heights that you see right here in the blue, the higher heights in the orange, warmer colors, extend all the way down to the south. So basically, this boundary, this cold front that you call it, is draping all the way down here to the south. So what happens here is basically everybody in this blue area has more stable, dry conditions, which storm development has nothing to do with that. They don't want anything to do with that. So basically, you're going to have dry, stable air, more so draped across the eastern U.S. But you are probably going to have the chance of maybe some strong to severe storms, potentially maybe in the southern sections of the high plains, maybe down here in Texas, Louisiana. But as far as the southeast, and certainly way up here, I don't think you're going to have much storm development at all. You could potentially have some storms up here in the northeast at this side of this trough right into here. Maybe somewhere in southern New England for Monday. It's a big question here. Now, as we are getting into Tuesday, okay, the positioning of this troughing begins to shift further east. So you see this ridge kind of building in place. So this warm, moist air is beginning to creep a little bit further north. So what do we have going on for Tuesday? That's a big question. Trying to figure out Tuesday is a question. Also, I think the severe weather chances increase for Tuesday. It's just trying to figure out where it is. Is there going to be a little bit of severe weather down here in the south central U.S. and areas of the deep south? Are you going to have some storm development along the Gulf Coast? This lowering heights, this upper trough is still digging pretty substantially south into this region. Okay, so it's a tough call for Tuesday. The GFS is not totally on board with the placement of this upper trough. Okay, you get into Wednesday. All right, this is when we watch this feature right here. Do we have an all-out trough ejection that begins to get kick-started? You see this dip right here in this line right here. This tells us we have some kind of digging upper trough moving through. Now this begins to move in. Could there be some storms ongoing in Texas? I think it's quite possible. I think as this is digging in, you're probably going to have a severe weather threat potentially somewhere in Texas, maybe Wednesday, okay? But as we get into Thursday, look at this. Look at this little digging right here. This is a full-fledged ejecting shortwave piece of energy, basically a low pressure ejection off this upper trough. And I really think that Thursday, I mean, you have a negatively tilted trough. This thing is tilting like this now. I think Thursday you could have the potential for some significant severe weather. This is a week out. Somewhere in the Mississippi Valley, somewhere in the south central U.S., Arkansas, Oklahoma. This could be more of a substantial severe weather event. Friday, we have to watch too for somewhere in the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South, okay? So it's tough to figure out, guys. It really is. And you look at this from a Cape standpoint. In fact, let's look at dew points first. We look at this at dew points and how this looks compared to all the lower heights and the higher heights. So you get into Saturday, you see all this high humidity, dew points in the 60s and 70s up the Mississippi Valley, okay? This will provide the ingredients for some nasty severe weather for areas of the south central U.S. for Saturday. Sunday, you have a pretty moist sector, a large area of moist air extending very far north. So this is why you're probably going to have a lot of storm activity all the way up to Indiana, Illinois. A lot of rain. Sunday could be a big rainmaker also. But the ingredients are there for some severe weather too. Look at this deep moisture in place. Monday, this is when that upper trough pushes through, right? So you get a day where the air really stabilizes. Dry air, dew points in the 40s to 50s, and you'll have a digging boundary, basically a cold front sagging through Monday afternoon. This is separating very dry air with moist air. This will sweep through. It likely will not be able to dig all the way to the Gulf coastline. We get all the way to Tuesday morning, and this is draped across potentially the eastern U.S., central U.S., okay? But it's digging northwest to southeast, so therefore it's not really reaching Texas. It's still very moist in Texas, so therefore Tuesday, like I said, higher dew points. I think you could have severe weather into Louisiana, into Texas, okay? But, you know, you could have some severe weather potential in southern New England Tuesday with the advancing cold front moving in, but ahead of it, moist air. But the southeast, forget about it, okay? Very dry air. You get back into Wednesday, these dew points begin to rise again. Look at these dew points into the low to mid 70s Wednesday afternoon. So you're probably going to have storm activity. You're probably going to have a dry line setting up in Texas somewhere. And then we get into Thursday. And you have a large moist sector moving in, low pressure somewhere into here, and this is where we could get into some trouble. So moist air kind of going back and forth, tilting north, going back south. Next thing you look at is the flow aloft, meaning how are the winds above the surface, above our heads? Are they moving fast? Are they turning with height? Well, we look at this, okay, and this is 500 millibar wind speeds. So we get into, we'll start off for Saturday. Notice where there's going to be severe weather Saturday, you have a very weak flow aloft. So these storms, they're probably not going to produce much of a tornado threat, if any at all. But as the low-level jet does try to increase somewhat, maybe overnight, Saturday night, you could have a damaging wind threat that really gets going. But with this cyclonic flow up here, this upper-level low, you could certainly have some winds wrapping around it, but you're lacking thermodynamics. But, you get into Monday, this is when that jet stream really sets up. Basically, this avenue sets up right here for storm systems to go across. And this is when the winds increase in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So, right over here, you got kind of competing steering currents. Not really competing, they're all kind of going the same way, but you can have different mechanisms kind of driving this with this upper low right here and just this jet max right down here. And, you could have a flow aloft that supports maybe a tornado threat if you can get any kind of severe weather into this region. But that's in the upper levels, right? So you get into Tuesday, and then this is when this flow really gets cranked up for the south central U.S. You got pretty much a west to east flow right across the south central U.S., the plains. And you keep this going into Wednesday, and this jet max, the jet stream is just flying right over this area. And it's pretty far south, which is unusual for this time of the year. So you got pretty much in general, a 50-knot mid-level jet flying over all the states in the south. Okay, but this is when you get this buckle that I'm concerned about. You see this buckle right in here? This causes a low pressure to form, and then you have a 60 to 70 knot mid-level jet flying over portions of Oklahoma, southern Missouri, Arkansas. I'm really watching this area for Thursday. Okay, this moves through, and there even could be a severe weather threat getting into Kentucky for Friday, but that's 8 days out. It's pretty far out to try to figure out. But you take a look at the low-level jets, and this is winds about a mile above the atmosphere, and really nothing to worry about all the way until you get to Thursday. Look at this low-level jet in East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas on, when is this? June 15th. This is something you see in early May, April, heck, even March. Okay, this is not common for this time of the year, but I mean, you have a 40 to 30, 40 at times, 50 knot low-level jet increasing with the approachment of this low pressure on the south and southeast and eastern portion of this low pressure. If this kind of unfolds, then you're going to have a tornado threat, okay, for Thursday for Arkansas and surrounding areas. So we need to really watch this and pay attention to this. And I know I didn't really show the Cape levels in response, but Cape levels, you can see it well. You get into Sunday, I think you could have a severe weather threat as far north as southern Indiana, Illinois, but you don't have a lot of juice to the atmosphere. You don't need a lot though. You get into Monday, a lot of of energy to the atmosphere for Texas. Cape levels in the mixed layer approaching over 3,000 joules per kilogram. You get into Tuesday. They really begin to increase with, I think, a dry line setting up 4,000 joules per kilogram. And then we get into Wednesday, Cape levels spiking further north, even higher. And then I think Wednesday and Thursday we got to watch. And, man, look at this. This is not a good look. You got Cape levels over 3,000 joules per kilogram in Arkansas, low-level jet overhead, dew points are high. This would be a significant severe weather threat if the Euro plays out. The GFS says, hey, it's not going to be that bad. You look at this as far as precipitation, guys, and, you get into Monday, you see some storm development. Watch out for maybe some strong storms in the Northeast, the Eastern Carolinas, maybe some strong storms also possible in Texas. You get into Tuesday. Tuesday will be, maybe a quieter day, Monday and Tuesday, but we'll certainly watch. You get into Wednesday. Some storms are showing up even down here in South Carolina, Georgia. I would argue that there's probably some more storm action down here than what you're seeing. Look at this 998 low pressure, though, that begins to move in. And then the European shows most of the convective activity over Missouri, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily where it's going to be. So we need to watch. The good news out of all this is we'll start us off Saturday morning. Look at the rain as we go into the weekend. This takes us through Saturday morning through Monday evening. Much needed rain over all the states that you see. 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches of rain as possible. And I mean, even going all the way until around this time next week, a week out, much needed rain shows up from Missouri through Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Tennessee. The rain is coming, so that is the good news. So we'll get more detailed on each day as we get closer, guys. I'm gonna keep you guys updated, I promise. Let's take a look at the GFS. Listen, it's the tropics, guys, that a lot of people are wondering. I want to tell you right off the bat, I'm not going to stay long on this. The GFS is not going to pull me into this. It's not. The GFS has a terrible Caribbean hurricane bias. It is a terrible model when it comes to the tropics sometimes. Sometimes it can sniff some things out, an overall pattern out, but it loves to do what I'm about to show you. And I haven't even looked at the latest run. I know it's going to do it. So, we're getting into next week. We're getting to late next week. Here's this area of low pressure that forms. I think this is very possible. Over a week out, I think, around next weekend, we could be maybe talking about an area of unsettled weather down here in Central America. We call it a CAG, Central American Gyrum. It's basically an unorganized area of low pressures, but basically a huge area of moisture. And the GFS really likes the idea of this getting on basically the Atlantic side, the western side of the Caribbean, emerging, into this region right here of the Western Caribbean, and then forming into an all-out tropical system, riding into the Gulf of Mexico. About 10 to 11 days from now. And then if I was to keep the run going, which we are not that far out, it'll probably developing this into a hurricane for its 20th run in a row and slam the Gulf Coast. You look at the European, we go 240 hours out. It doesn't show anything but showers and storms down here. Shows nothing at 240 hours out, but if you look at the GFS 240 hours out, shows what would be Tropical Storm Arlene, basically heading right to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's why I'm not talking about it much. It's not worth discussing, I don't think. I think that you are going to have a CAG down here, which I just told you what that is. Just an area that you got to watch. And sometimes these areas of this low pressure, broad area of a low pressure, sometimes can drift into the Eastern Pacific, sometimes the Western Atlantic. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said that right. And sometimes develop. It happens, especially in early in a hurricane season. But for now, it's not really discussing in great detail. Don't believe any hype out there. Don't believe anything. And here it is. Get 270 hours out, and you got a borderline hurricane 2 Mondays from now. So we'll see what happens with this. We'll continue to talk about it if it's warranted. That's all I got. God bless all y'all. Have a great night.